All right. So this week we're gonna try something a little new. Solo podcast episode with myself here. And let me just turn that off. I got a little bit of an echo. Yes, Alain is on a family vacation and yeah, we've done some interviews with some friends and colleagues and special guests. And this week, hey, we thought, why not try a solo episode inspired by some others that I've been listening to lately? So today, I wanted to talk about commitment. And well, here I am. I'm committed to doing this every week live. So there won't be any editing of my rant here this morning. I won't go on too long, but I would really like to talk about commitment. It's one of the most important things I've found, and I believe a dad can be. And I'd like to start with commitment in terms of how we are committed to ourselves. And then we'll work our way outwards. But we've talked about it a lot on this podcast around inside out, how to be committed for with us to start, and then we'll work our way outwards in terms of commitment to others. But yeah, it all starts with the commitments we've made for ourselves here. It's about, living our word. And, just as a simple example, I've committed to doing this podcast live every week. I haven't committed to doing it forever, but for now, my commitment is every week. And of course, we can always recommit to something, but I've found it extremely valuable and extremely important to commit to something and put it in writing or put an agreement in place with yourself and live up to the word that you gave yourself. And what I found is, and making sure that you make commitments that you can actually live up to. And the more times we do this, it's like reps at the gym, right? If we commit to doing something, we do it, and then we show ourselves we can do it. It builds like this muscle, this confidence around being committed. And the more times we do this, and making sure that we also, again, say things that we are willing to commit to, and the more times we do this, we can get to the place with our word that when we say something, we now know we're going to do it. And that's a very powerful place to be, is basically by speaking something, you're now realizing that, hey, I've become so powerful with my own word to myself that if I say this, I know I can make it happen. And so that to me is a very, very powerful place to be. Speak it and it will happen. And so yeah, setting yourself up for success. So that's a very powerful place to start, is commitment to ourselves. And again, a great place I've learned how to do this is with our own Atomic Habits. I'm a big fan of that book, and Atomic Habits are starting out with little things that we are going to commit to. It can be an exercise routine. For example, I've been doing push-ups almost every morning. Again, I'll talk about how we waver on our commitments and how we recommit to things and fix that. But almost every single morning, I've done my push-ups. I do journaling. I do a short prayer. I do what I call well, it's a group thing, what we call an I am practice. Anyways, there's these little habits every single morning that I do, and by doing them, again, that's another way to build that muscle of commitment. Is I've said I'm going to do these things. I've made them important, and I do them. And sometimes, yes, sometimes it's difficult. Like coming on here solo was a little intimidating, was a little awkward. I haven't done this before for our podcast, and yet I've made it very important, and therefore I'm going to find a way to be committed to doing it. I made myself some notes if I needed some help. But yes, these morning habits. I've got alarms set on my phone to remind me. I've got an app where I track them. I've set myself up for success. And again, that's just another way to build up commitment every single day, is committing to those things that you have agreed with yourself. I haven't told anyone else that I'm doing, well, I told you guys, but I haven't made an agreement with anyone else. I'm not expecting anyone else to hold me to committing to doing these things. These are things that I've made important to myself, and I'm doing my best to do them every single day. So commitment, again, I believe is a very powerful muscle that we can exercise. I believe one of the most powerful ways to start exercising or to keep exercising that muscle in our lives is with ourselves first and foremost, and then we start to ripple those outwards. So, let me see here. And yeah, so then we start to ripple outwards. Next, I would say most importantly is to commit to our spouses. Since we're talking about a dad podcast here, most of us will have a partner, a wife, and that's the next most powerful place to commit to. And likely this would have happened very early on in your relationship, ideally before you had kids. And yeah, that's with all of these things, whether it's yourself or with somebody else, what I found is one of the most important places to start to make these commitments is to figure out what is really important. What's important to you, what's important to the other, you say your wife, your spouse in this case, figuring out what are your values, what is your vision for the relationship. There's many ways that you can come up with what's important. That can be a whole other conversation in terms of how you come up with values, how you come up with a vision. But for starters, sitting down and just discussing what's going to be important for each of us in this relationship and what are we both willing to commit to make that happen. And that can be, there's many ways that that agreement can happen in a marriage. That's typically your vows, if you've taken the time to write those. With my wife and I, we did things in a little bit different order. We got pregnant first, and one of the important things that I did for her that she really wanted was um, I wrote out birth vows. So as soon as we knew that we were pregnant, that created a massive commitment that I wanted to make to her. And to show her that, I wrote out and I put it on this fancy paper and it's framed on her bedside table. I wrote out what I was going to commit to in terms of being her husband, in terms of being a father, in terms of our life together. And that was my way of at least, formalizing an agreement, writing it down. And then, the reps came in obviously every single day after that in terms of how I was going to show her that commitment. So yes, that would be next is we start with ourselves and then we ripple out to the most important relationships in our lives. And as dads, one of the most important ones will be with our spouses. And there's going to be a case where yeah, we're not always going to be able to honor. Well, we can. There's likely a chance that we're going to slip. We're going to miss one of our commitments. There's days that I have forgotten to do my daily routine, my daily habits, and uh, I look at it like, well, actually, I don't look at it. It's from the book, The Big Leap. One of the ways I like to look at it came from Gay Hendricks in the book, The Big Leap, and to look at it like almost like a physics thing. Like you can look at integrity. I don't know. It's kind of like a dam. And if there's ever a breach in the dam, like if I've ever forgotten to do something, okay, I might be out of integrity. Or if I've lacked in my commitment, like if I don't know, forgot to show up for one of our weekly podcasts here, it doesn't make me a bad person, but it does mean that there's a breach of my integrity. There's a break in the dam that I need to fix. And so by repairing it, that's one of the most important things I've realized is when you do have a breach of your integrity, if you've missed one of your commitments, is to immediately repair it. There's a great TED talk on how that can be one of the most important things you do in a relationship is repair, because there are going to be times where you'll say something that you didn't mean to be offensive, or you'll do something and the other person gets upset, or you do something that you realize that maybe you shouldn't have, you get upset, and one of the most important things you can do is to repair it. So it's to fix the hole in the dam and to get back to a place of integrity where the dam has strength. If this analogy makes sense, it's kind of like, yeah, with your daily habits, I'll miss one, but it's very unlikely I'll miss two. That's a commitment I've made to myself. And if I miss one, okay, I'll recommit to doing it the next day. So with commitment, again, not to get hard on yourself. If you miss your commitment, there's a breach of your integrity, if you do something that takes you, out of that commitment, a very important thing is to fix it immediately and to repair it and to get back to wholeness and integrity and to not to get hard on yourself. So let me see here. check my trusty notes that I've made. Um, Next will be okay. Well, we're talking about a dad podcast here. We've talked about commitment to ourselves, our wives. Next will be super importantly with our kids. And I found a great place to start is figuring out what kind of dad. I mean, this starts, very early on, maybe even before you find out you're pregnant or during pregnancy. I mean, you've got 9 months to figure out a lot of stuff. What kind of dad do you want to be? And to realize that you don't have to be the same dad that your dad was. I was just reading a great book recently on, she had a mechanism around import and export. What are the things you really want to import from, say, your parents or your dad, other dads that you see as that you want to hold up as great examples, and collecting those things that you want to import and then figuring out which of those characteristics you want to export and what kind of dad. And again, there's not likely going to be one dad that embodies everything that you want to be. But if you take 1 year, we did a being board instead of a vision board. We did a being board and collecting all the people that you want to be more like. And in a lot of cases, those people that you are inspired by and those that you admire, a lot of times they're going to reflect back to you things that ways of being that you already know you have inside of you, but they're just being an example for you about how to bring that forward. So collecting a few examples in terms of the kind of dad that you want to be, whether that's how you behave or how you act in your marriage, how you act with your kids, how you are with yourself, how you are with others, how you are financially, how you are health wise. And yeah, figuring that out first is creating that identity for yourself. That's a very powerful force, is who we hold ourselves to be. And once you've got that, kind of dad that you want to become, that you have that inside of you, then it's a matter of committing to being the best dad that you can possibly be and being on the path of growth. And it's important to, appreciate who you are already in this moment and how far you've already come. There's also a great book, The Gap and the Gain, I was listening to recently, and just a reminder about making sure to focus on, who you are already, who you've already become, and focusing on your gains. Because if you spend too much time focusing on the gap in terms of, oh, I wish I was that dad, and oh, I'm not there yet, and oh, if you live in the gap, that can lead to a lot of suffering and misery, and you're not going to be happy with yourself. But if you can focus on, yes, who you are, who you've already become, and your gains, that's going to become your, rocket fuel, your foundation to do the work to become, more of the person that you can become. So still great to have that vision for who you ultimately want to become. And also, while you're on that journey, is to make sure that you focus on who you are in the present and how far you've already come. So that's a great place to start and commit to then becoming that best dad that you can be. And I found it super helpful to be in a group of guys. We have a dad group that we've been together with now for 9 years almost, and we've met every single week. Almost missed a couple with holidays and whatnot, but almost every single week we've committed to being together, meeting together, and committing to supporting each other to be the best dads, best men, best humans that we can be. And so again, there's another example of commitment, is committing to ourselves in terms of that growth and being our best selves, and then it's and committing to being in a group that helps support us to each become that and be on that path. So and it's a practice. It's a, especially as a dad, as a husband, I mean, life is going to be your dojo in your own household. That's your dojo. That's your daily practice. You're going to get challenges. Your kids, your spouses are likely going to stir up some stuff in you that's going to get you to look at stuff in terms of, I'm not at my best right now. What's going on? Why am I upset? Why am I triggered? Your house is that dojo to reaffirm that commitment to, okay, what's going on here? How do I get back to being my best? And that's one of the beautiful places to be, in my opinion, is to choose to be a dad You've picked one of the most rewarding and most challenging journeys of growth that I know of. I joke that Jesus didn't have a wife and kids. It's can be a lot easier if you're on your own. I'm not saying it is, but it can be. But in a household, I've got three kids and a wife, and we've all each got our own business. That can be a lot of rewarding times and also a lot of growth in terms of yeah, how to just continue to be our best and learn and grow and take one challenge at a time. So let's see here. Um, Again, I appreciate you tuning in here for our first solo podcast. And I'm doing this on Zoom out to YouTube here live. We will end up putting these on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Well, and then, yeah, so, taking that perspective that our house is our dojo, life is our dojo, is looking at times where, again, I've mentioned this briefly before, when we're out of integrity, when we've, faltered on our commitments, using that as an opportunity for growth and looking at, okay, well, why did I falter? Why did I miss on my commitment? Why is there being a breach of my own integrity? I said this was important. I said I was going to commit to this and not going to a place of, being super hard on yourself and making sure to check your mind in terms of, I mean, you can go to a place of, oh, well, I mean, I'm not good enough to do this then. And what does that mean about me? That's the place you don't want to go to in terms of talking down and negatively about yourself, but definitely looking at the breach of integrity, the why you missed the commitment. And sometimes this can be a great exercise to do with a close friend or a therapist or someone outside of you that can help you talk it out in terms of how you've missed it. And I mean, it can be a simple thing like, okay, I missed or let's say I didn't show up for this podcast here today. Now I could make up a bunch of good excuses like, oh, well, we've said we were going to do it with two people, which isn't true, but I can make up a bunch of excuses. Um, or and I might still, but one effective thing to do would be either to journal it out. You can also write it out and talk to yourself in terms of like, well, why did I choose to miss it? Or I can chat with some of my close friends who are really great at supporting me in terms of, okay, well, why did I miss my commitment? And coming out with the real truth in terms of, oh, well, I was nervous, I was scared, I didn't want to do it on my own. Um, or if it was an exercise routine, I didn't know how to start, or I was afraid that if I started, I might fail, and I'm not good with failure, or I didn't do that other thing because I was afraid of rejection. I mean, there's all these. It'll start off with surface excuses a lot of times, but with the right support, you can get to a place of actually recognizing the real fear that might live beneath those excuses. And to me, that's a really powerful place to get to because now you can really look at, okay, well, why am I afraid of that? Where did that come from? And just through that exercise of being willing to explore your own depths and figure out where you might have missed on one of your commitments can be a phenomenal place for growth and realization and self-awareness. And I mean, that's for me one of the most important things in terms of being that best version of you, being that best dad that you can be, is being willing to grow, is being willing to get learning about yourself, being willing to go and explore your own, shadow your own limitations, your own limitations that you put on yourself, and being willing to get some help to do that. So, um, I'll say that as well in terms of, yes, when we miss, that's not a bad thing. That can be a great opportunity for growth, and it's can always be a great place to get some help with as well. Um, yeah, I'll just end with here is I've realized that commitment is a superpower. It can mean to me being super present, and that also being such an important thing. I believe in a relationship, again, with yourself, with those people that you care about around you, is by being committed. I'm going to also be present. I'm committed to being the best dad I can be. I'm going to be committed to being present with them in this moment, whatever we're doing, whether it's, sitting on the couch, whether it's, eating dinner, whether it's, going out for a walk, whether it's going and doing something fun as a family. Um, for me, it starts with commitment. With commitment, it means that you're going to figure it out. You've committed to this outcome. And if you're truly committed, then, essentially you've burned the boats. Like there is no retreat. You're all in. And I know, early on in my professional career and in other relationships, I struggled with commitment. I'd have one foot in and I'd have another foot out because, I was afraid of failing. I mean, I'd attached earlier on in my life, I'd attached outside achievement and outside success with me being a good person. And so, therefore, to protect myself, if I kept one foot out and I never had myself all the way in, then if something didn't work out, then at least I would have had a sort of safety mechanism built in for myself where, oh, well, I wasn't really all in. I wasn't really all that committed. So, that's why I didn't succeed. Therefore, I can protect, this identity I had for myself. With some help and with some growth through the years, I've realized that I'm not, I'm a great person just because of who I am. I'm not a great person because of what I've done. I don't attach my own identity of and self-worth to external achievements and external successes. So that also allows me to fully commit to something. And even if it doesn't work out the way I think it will, because sometimes it won't, doesn't mean anything about me, but at least I know I gave it my best. I gave it my all. I went all in, and I'm still a great person. I can still think highly of myself. And if it didn't turn out, well, that, like I said before, that just gives me a great opportunity to look at, well, why didn't it? And there can be some fun, fantastic learning from that. So yeah, with commitment, if you're truly committed, like for example, with this podcast right now today, being truly committed, even if my, power went out and the lights blew up and my computer broke, I mean, I would still, with being truly committed, I would still find a way. I would, take my phone, run outside, go on Wi-Fi or go on cellular and join it, or run over to my neighbor's house and wake them up at 5:30 in the morning and ask if I can use their computer. I mean, there's a way to figure it out when you're truly committed, in my opinion. And by being in that place of, okay, I'm going to figure it out with that belief, that's where things happen. That's where the magic happens. For me, that's when I believe it, then I'll see it. For me, that's a growth mindset versus, a fixed mindset will be, oh, when I see it, then I'll believe it. That's leaving things to chance. That's leaving, it's kind of giving up your power in things. But when you're truly committed to an outcome, when you're truly committed to a result, when you're committed to yourself, you're committed to your partner, you're committed to your kids, you're committed to this, this identity, these visions that you have for yourself, you'll find a way. And you'll, when you're fully in, you create that belief that this is going to happen. I'm going to figure this out. As a result, then you'll see it. And I believe that that's just a very powerful place to live and to be in that place of commitment. Um, so yeah, that's what I've got here for today on commitment. Not going to keep going any longer. I hope that's been valuable for yourself. I know for me in my life, it's just and the guys around me, I keep in my circle some very, very committed guys to the similar things, to their health, to their work, to their missions, to their wives, to their kids, to themselves, to their own families. And if you're, in a place where you're not feeling as committed, it can really help to surround yourself with people who are. And so sometimes it means, if you're really committed to this life that you want for yourself and your family, it can sometimes mean recommitting to, some new friendships. It might can be recommitting to, new environment. Some that can be really helpful if you're surrounding yourself in a place that's going to lead to more success. It can mean making some changes for yourself just to, support you on your journey as well. It's there's no point in suffering through these things. There's things you can do to set yourself up for success and to make it easier on your path here. So hope that's been helpful. Thank you for listening, watching, and we'll be back next week, likely Alain and myself. Have yourselves awesome